Part 45. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 441. Chapter 441, An Opportunity. Xiao Yuer, you're getting married, and Aunt Lu will come to your house to entertain you with a drink. Xiao Yuer, have you finished embroidering your wedding dress? Xiao Yuer, I'm going to be a bride. Xiao Yuer carried a vegetable basket and walked through the village. The women in the village were all laughing and joking. Xiao Yuer pursed her lips and called each ant with a smile. No wonder the young men in the village are concerned about her. Xiao Yuer is so beautiful, she is gentle and virtuous. Hey, I just hope that the young man from the Wen family will not let her down. Xiao Yuer never smiles when I see him, he is very indifferent. Don't worry, you'll find out when you get married under the banyan tree, the ants laughed while embroidering. When Xiao Yuer went back, little Cherry was putting happy words on the window with her feet on her feet. Although brother Mingxian has just come out of his filial piety period, getting married is a lifelong event and must be lively and lively. Little Cherry's cheeks were flushed, and she could tell that she was living a happy life. Don't step on your feet. It's not safe for you to step on your feet when you're pregnant. Let me do it. Mo Ling hurriedly took the window grill from her hand and put it on herself. Little Cherry smiled a little shyly. Xiao Yuer looked at the smile on her face and couldn't help but curl his lips. Come and try on the wedding clothes. The wedding is the day after tomorrow. Sister Yuer, are you nervous? Xiao Yingying helped her put on the wedding clothes and looked at Xiao Yuer's unpainted face, which was a little dull. Sister, you are so beautiful. It was obviously just an ordinary wedding dress, but when she wore it, it looked like a high-end custom-made expensive thing. Xiao Yuer looked at himself in the bronze mirror and touched his cheek. Brother Mingxian is really lucky to have such a beautiful bride, little Cherry joked. Xiao Yuer's eyebrows were slightly curved. Little Cherry stayed until night before leaving. Before leaving, her steps were a little hesitant. In the night, Mo Ling put a piece of clothing on her. Little Cherry walked to the door, paused, turned back and whispered, Sister Yuer, will you be happy? Brother Mingxian wanted to get married, but he was not enthusiastic about the marriage. You bought the wedding clothes yourself, we put up the window grills ourselves, and the wedding invitations were written by Mo Ling and sent out by you. If he doesn't participate in the slightest, will he really make you happy? Xiao Ying said with a serious face. If she had never experienced the love Mo Ling gave her, she would not understand it either. Xiao Yuer stood behind the door and looked at her calmly. Cherry, I owe him once. If he wants to get married, I will allow him once. Give him one chance. Little Cherry lowered her head. She felt that people in love shouldn't be like this. Let's go, they have to go to the marriage temple tomorrow. Mo Ling rubbed her head and took little Cherry away. At night, when Mingxian came back with a table of spiritual tablets, Xiao Yuer went to offer a stick of incense first. Among them are the Wen family's father and mother, as well as grandparents, etc. The tip of Xiao Yuer's nose moved slightly and he glanced at Wen Mingxian. Wen Mingxuan's back was turned to him, looking at the room full of memorial tablets in a daze. Xiao Yuer looked thoughtful. The aura on his body has changed. I'm going to the marriage temple tomorrow, Xiao Yuer said softly. Wen Mingxian hummed and was about to leave when he heard Xiao Yuer say, Brother Mingxian, you won't lie to me, right? Wen Mingxian responded in a low voice. At night, Xiao Yuer was lying on the bed with a calm expression. She felt the spiritual energy in Wen Mingxian. Before today, never. Xiao Yuer closed his eyes expressionlessly. Early on the second day, Grandma Yang came to the house early to wait for the two of them, and wanted to accompany them to the marriage temple. The marriage temple in our town is approved. By the way, we will also give you 2 love beans. Only when lovers support them can they grow into sprouts. Most of those who failed to grow sprouts divorced. The two of them were extremely quiet. After having breakfast, they accompanied Granny Yang out. Grandma Yang was extremely happy along the way. When she arrived at the marriage temple, there were many people selling wooden hairpins outside. This is a peach blossom hairpin, Mingxian, buy one for Xiao Yuer. This was enshrined in the marriage temple, and it will protect you from falling in love till you grow old. Granny Yang pushed Wen Mingxian to buy a wooden hairpin. At Grandma Yang's urging, it was inserted into Xiao Yuer's hair. Xiao Yuer touched it and pursed his lips slightly. The two wrote their birthdays and birth dates in the marriage shrine, then threw them toward the tree and hung them on the tree. He went to the marriage temple to pay homage to Yu Lao and made a vow to be the same as Beidu. When he returned, the boy at the door gave him 2 beans. It turns out to be red beans. When Mingxian twirled the red beans and chuckled. Love beans, red beans. The little child is smiling. According to legend, everyone has a trace of love on their wrist. That trace of love is in charge of love. If 2 people who love each other meet, their love will be entangled with each other. Those who love each other can grow love flowers. I also asked the 2 newlyweds to take these love beans back. The little boy was dressed in red, smiling, and his pocket was full of candies given to him by the newlyweds. When he moved his body, all the candy fell out. He slowly picked it up again, tore off the candy wrapper and stuffed it into his mouth. Having a bulging mouth, it made all the little fish laugh. It's just to deceive people, do you believe it? Wen Mingxian said lightly. The child was angry. What is cheating for incense, what is fooling people? Stretch out your hand. The little child's face was filled with anger, and he chewed the candy and swallowed it. Wen Mingxian stretched out his hand. The fingers are long and slender, as gentle as jade. The little child stretched out his hand and lightly traced his pulse, like some simple and mysterious pattern. Wen Mingxian felt his pulse jump sharply, and a faint red thread appeared in the center of the pulse. The little child snorted, "Stretch out your hand too." The little fish stretched out his hand. Children still draw patterns, but... Huh, the little child was startled. He glanced at Xiao Yuer and then at Wen Mingxian. Lifted up the controlling hand again and made a hand seal. However, I could only see a faint red dot in the center of the little fish's pulse, but no red line appeared. The little child was stunned for a long time and could not recover his senses. When Mingxuanwei was a little bored, "Let's go, I'll call you a liar." Until the 2 of them walked far away, the little boy said, "How could it be, that there is no love? How can there be anyone in this world who has no love roots?" And, the little child muttered with his lips and then disappeared. When the 2 returned home, it was getting dark. Tomorrow is the wedding. There was joy everywhere in the house, but also a strange desolation. Wen Mingxian was still cold and indifferent. Xiao Yuer looked at his back and said nothing. Early on the second day, Grandma Yang and the women in the village rushed over before dawn. "Get up quickly and dress up. Today is the most beautiful time in my life. Our fish is getting married." Grandma Yang was filled with joy. Grandma Yang knew that neither of them had any family around, so she was busy taking care of things. Little Cherry is also busy with her belly. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 442. Chapter 442, Wife-Killing Sermon. The simple courtyard is covered with red silk hangings everywhere. Although the yard looks simple, the owner's care can be seen everywhere. The yard is surrounded by flowers of all colors, full of spring. These are all brought back from the mountains by Xiao Yuer in his spare time. The villagers all came to help enthusiastically, making the wedding extremely lively. "Where is the groom? Why hasn't the groom come back yet?" the village chief asked in confusion. "The banquet is about to begin, why haven't we seen the groom yet?" Little Cherry's heart thumped and she looked towards the little fish covered with a red hijab. The bride sat in front of the bronze mirror and waited. The groom was nowhere to be seen. Just when little Cherry was guessing, Someone shouted from outside the door, "The groom is back." She secretly breathed a sigh of relief, thinking Wen Mingxian had run away. Grandma Yang came hurriedly and said, "I guess I went to my father and mother's graves to express my condolences to my ancestors, and I'm back. The auspicious time has come, and we will get married soon." Grandma Yang was a little uneasy. "I always feel like my eyelids are twitching a lot." The sound of gongs and drums was very lively, and everyone was congratulating Wen Mingxian. "When you get married, you should be nice to her and live a good life from now on. You should support each other and grow old together." Grandma Yang held Wen Mingxuan's hand and kept telling her. Wen Mingxuan's hands were surprisingly cold, biting to the bone. Grandma Yang always felt that something was wrong with Wen Mingxian today. The aura of being out of dust became more and more obvious, and he looked like an immortal. "I heard that the immortal master from the immortal sect has come out to recruit disciples, but this has nothing to do with the remote mountain village. Worship the heaven and the earth. Two bows to the high hall." The house was filled with souls, which was shocking to see. Obviously you only need to worship your parents to get married, but when Mingxian took out the memorial tablets of all his relatives, and Xiao Yuer kept kowtowing and getting up. Kowtow constantly and get up constantly. Worship at Jiaotang until her legs and feet tremble. Her forehead turned red as she kowtowed. Little Cherry's eyes turned red as she looked at it. Mo Ling pulled her and shook her head gently. He could see that there was a deep entanglement between Xiao Yuer and Wen Mingxian. At the same time, he was a little afraid of Wen Mingxian today. He has been practicing for thousands of years, but Wen Mingxian is just a mortal, so he actually has a kind of fear in his bones. The couple worship each other. At the moment when the couple bowed to each other, there was a storm outside. It is obviously a sunny and good weather, but at this moment, the sun is actually covered by flying sand and rocks and dark clouds. Oh, why did the wind blow suddenly? The wind was so strange that everyone was a little scared. It seems like it's going to rain heavily. Fortunately, we put up a shed. The ceremony is completed. Sent into the bridal chamber. After the ceremony was completed, little Cherry helped little Yuer back to the backyard. Wen Mingxian stayed with everyone in the front yard until it got dark and the villagers left one after another. The excitement has dispersed. The candle was burning brightly. There was some silence in the house. Hearing Wen Mingxuan's footsteps, Xiao Yuer's hand holding the handkerchief tightened slightly. Under the hijab, I saw him approaching step by step. The man paused in front of her for a moment, breathing shallowly, and both of them could feel each other's breathing. The light comes. He lifted his hijab. Xiao Yuer felt a little dazzling and raised his head slightly. Wen Mingxian looked away in a hurry as if he was stung by her appearance. "Have a drink at the bar." The two of them were holding wine glasses, their breathing intertwined, and Xiao Yuer was stunned for a moment. "Where have you been today?" Xiao Yuer asked. "Don't you have anything to tell me?" Xiao Yuer looked at him steadily. The two of them held their wrists and breathed together. Wen Mingxian frowned. "I went to see my parents." Xiao Yuer said no more. The strong alcohol went down her throat, causing her to cough slightly. Wen Mingxian was about to raise his hand, but suddenly took it back as if he remembered something. Wen Mingxian took her hand and put out the red candle. Step by step towards the bed. Under night. Heavy rain is coming. The room was eerily quiet. The silence is unnerving. The wild wind made the windows crackle. Wen Mingxian held her and sat on the edge of the bed, with the girl's petite body leaning in his arms. Able to feel each other's body temperature. "You know, every day, when I close my eyes, I see the scene of my grandparents, parents, and relatives dying in front of me. I can never sleep peacefully." Wen Mingxian hugged her and rested his chin on her shoulder. He murmured quietly. "Xiao Yuer, I will never forget my hatred in this life." "The Zhang family." "The Zhang family." "Your Majesty." "Brother Mingxian, Look at my wrists. Xiao Yu'er closed his eyes and shouted softly. The moment when the sound falls. Puff. The sound of a sharp knife tip piercing flesh and blood. The blood flowed down the river, soaking the red wedding clothes along Xiao Yu'er's body. Xiao Yu'er still closed his eyes, calm and without a trace of surprise. There was an explosion in the sky and thunder rolling. White lightning pierced the night sky, and Wen Mingxian could clearly see Xiao Yu'er's pale cheeks. Xiao Yu'er, Wen Mingxuan's voice trembled. The hand holding the knife was shaking constantly. He followed Xiao Yu'er's gaze and saw that the red dot on Xiao Yu'er's wrist was growing red thread little by little. But the moment the sword penetrated the flesh, all the red threads have faded away, and even the red spots have disappeared. Xiao Yu'er seemed to be sighing, but also seemed to be mocking, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Xiao Yu'er raised his hand and grasped Wen Mingxuan's big hand tightly, pressing it firmly on the handle of the knife. Then he took another sharp step forward. Iffies. The entire knife was directly inserted into the body. The little fish spit out blood. Wen Mingxian let go of his hand like crazy. Xiao Yu'er. I'm sorry, Xiao Yu'er, I'm sorry. I can't let go of everything. I can't let my whole family die in vain. I can't marry the daughter of a genocide. Wen Mingxian saw the dazzling red color and felt a constant chill in his heart. Xiao Yu'er wanted to laugh, but the rapid loss of blood made it impossible for her to even smile. She slowly fell to the ground. 3 days ago. She was under Wen Mingxuan's pillow. Discovered the practice book of Wukingdao. The ruthless way. The sword cuts off relatives and severs love. The entire Wen family is dead, and now only me is left who has not yet broken off the engagement. Kill your wife to prove the truth. Xiao Yu'er laughed softly. Huge mouthfuls of blood gushed out from her mouth. She never even glanced at Wen Mingxian, she only smiled lowly, and the vitality continued to flow from her body. Until the light in the eyes dims. Feel her breath cut off. Wen Mingxian shed a tear. His heart was obviously numb, so why was his whole body shaking with pain? He was shaking uncontrollably. An old man stood silently at the door. The worldly relationship has been broken. It's time for you to follow me to practice. This talent that was born to be a good practitioner was unexpectedly met by him. The fingertips are for marriage. If the marriage is entangled, you can enter the Tao by cutting it off. You should go with me. At least we are a married couple. Let the disciples take her to the funeral. When Mingxian did not look back, he just picked up Xiao Yu'er and walked step by step in the heavy rain. The heavy rain diluted the blood, but it could not wash away the traces of her visit. The little girl with round cheeks before has become so thin without knowing it. He was able to pick her up with almost no effort. It seemed that he hadn't heard brother Shen Xian for a long time. No, she called just now. Thinking of brother Mingxian, Wen Mingxuan's lips turned white in pain. Under the heavy rain, Wen Mingxian buried Xiao Yu'er. I found a wooden board with Wen Mingxuan's wife engraved on it. The small grave has become the girl's destination. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 443. Chapter 443, Cultivation of the Way of Heaven. The rain was pouring down. Soil is gradually washed away from the newly built tomb. The heavy rain poured down, and the lightning and thunder seemed to split the world apart. In the dark and silent night, under the roar of thunder, a pair of pale hands emerged from the middle of the grave. The soil was dug away little by little, revealing the smooth arms little by little. The girl with disheveled hair covered in mud climbed out of the grave in the rain, with the bright red wedding robe still on her body. The knife on the chest was inserted deeply into the chest. It's extremely ironic and extremely disturbing. Wide awake. The girl's face was calm, her clothes were soaked, and her cheeks were stained with mud. Her face was calm and calm. She lowered her head slightly, looking at the knife on his chest. Hand holding the handle of the knife, she took a deep breath, frowned fiercely, and made a sound. Then he pulled out the knife. Blood splattered everywhere, and she clutched her heart tightly. She hissed, sat down cross-legged, closed her eyes and fell into meditation, and then countless colorful spiritual energies surged towards her. They came like crazy. She can automatically practice the spiritual energy that others cannot touch with just a breath. She can even see every ray of spiritual energy in the world. All the spiritual energy danced lively and joyfully at her fingertips. Let her pale complexion instantly return to rosy. The wound on the chest has healed long ago. Kill your wife, to prove the truth. Xiao Yuer chuckled, but his brows were not smiling. He frowned slightly and looked at the words carved by Wen Mingxian on the tombstone. Wen Mingxuan's wife. Xiao Yuer laughed softly. Smiling and smiling, a tear fell from his eyes. I don't know whether it was rain or tears. Step on the tombstone with one foot. The tombstone shattered in response. Her eyes slowly became firm and cold. There is a coldness coming from the bones all over my body. The icy rainstorm fell on her, and she walked down the mountain step by step. With every step he took, a long trail of blood spread on his skirt. It rained heavily in May, and she stumbled down the mountain, pulling off the wooden hairpin on her head, while pulling off the red earrings from her ears. By the time she reached the bottom of the mountain, she had already taken off her wedding dress and was standing in front of her house wearing a middle coat. The double happiness sign on the door is still attached. How ironic it looks at this moment. She pushed open the door and entered. The flowers she picked are still in full bloom, there is still water in the water tank that he carried, and there is also the tree they planted together. She walked into the house. The decoration in the house is very festive. There was a large amount of blood stains in the house. Wen Mingxian didn't take anything with him, only the portrait of Xiao Yuer hanging in his bedroom. She walked to the window. There was a white porcelain bowl in front of the window. There are 2 red beans in the bowl. One of the red beans that was still bright during the day was dead and lifeless. Xiao Yuer spread out his hands, his wrists were slender and white, and the last trace of red spots was completely annihilated. Xiao Yuer looked at Hengdu without blinking. Love is fleeting, only practice is eternal, she murmured in a low voice. That sword may not have cut off Wen Mingxuan's feelings. What was beheaded was hers. Xiao Yuer counted the money and valuables in the house. He stood up and looked around. Go out the door. Hitch the gate securely. She wrapped the money into a ball, squeezed it in through the crack in the door, and gave it to little Cherry and his wife. She took one last look at the small mountain village and then walked in the rain. No one noticed that all the rain did not fall on her. She, who was able to withstand everything, has already embarked on the road to becoming a god. A road that only belongs to heaven. When the little fish appears, she has returned to the capital, the place where she gave birth. The capital was bustling with excitement, and all the people had a fanatical look on their faces. It seems to be crazier and more exciting than in previous years. Your Majesty actually violated his own edict. You are guilty of your own imperial edict. You are guilty of your own imperial edict directly in front of the world. Your Majesty is ashamed of the Wen family. Before entering the capital, I heard the people secretly murmuring. You don't know, this is not right. This is, Your Majesty has no choice. Your Majesty's palace has also raised many great practitioners, but there is still a gap compared to those truly peerless geniuses. The last single seedling of the Wen family, do you still remember it? Mr. Wen, he has returned to Beijing. He has become the close disciple of the Dengxian section. It is said that he is a Tianligan disciple that is rare to see in thousands of years. Tianligan, if anyone gets one, that will be the hope of the section. The three major sects all want to overpower each other, why don't they ask Mr. Wen to worship him? Unexpectedly, Mr. Wen went directly to the Dengxian sect and asked him to destroy the young disciple, so he started the section. The Dengxian sect found out the reason and found out that the disciple had harmed his fellow disciples, so he abolished his cultivation and expelled him. The Dengxian sect can still distinguish between a century-old genius and a 1,000-year-old peerless genius. The elders of the Dengxian sect are almost laughing their heads off. Your Majesty, look, are you not violating your own edict? Everyone said with a sigh. Who would have thought that after the collapse of the Wen family, Wen Mingxian stood up alone? Those who still trampled on the Wen family back then are now living with their tail between their legs. Now the entire celestial immortal sect is holding him up and treating him as a treasure. Oh, what about the Zhang family? The Zhang family and the Wen family were as close as one family back then. The Zhang family was the least defensive among the Wen family. There was also a little girl in the Zhang family who called Wen Mingxian her brother when she saw her. She, the person next to him, choked. Don't say it, the Zhang family is not a good person. Not only did they take advantage of the Wen family, but they also stabbed the Wen family in the back. Zhang Mu even came to ransack the Wen family in person. You are really a scumbag with a bad heart and a dog's heart. How can the girls of the Zhang family be worthy of young Master Wen? Now young Master Wen is the treasure of the entire immortal section, everyone said while shaking their heads. Oh, come on, it's time to test your spiritual roots. The Zhang family's baby, who has been sleeping for more than 10 years, is here too. Everyone hurriedly walked toward the center of the city. Zhang Xishan? Xiao Yu originally wanted to go back to the Su family, but now he went directly to the city. She thought for a while, then picked up a small mask from the street and put it on her face. When we arrived at the center of the city, there were already long queues for the three sects and the three arenas. Sighing sounded again after a while, and it seemed that countless people were being brushed off. Xiao Yu raised his eyes and took a look. The Dengxian sect was in the middle, with many elders sitting in the middle. There was a young man in white surrounded by them. The moment Xiao Yu looked over, he caught something and raised his eyes. The little fish moved away. Wen Mingxuan's eyes were slightly confused. Zhang Xishan happened to be on stage at this moment, so he didn't think much about it. Zhang Xishan took a deep breath. He did not go to the immortal sect. He didn't dare. At present, the three major families of the Dengxian sect and Lingyuan sect are the Sanking section. He chose Lingyuan sect. Please put your hand on the spirit testing stone. The number of light pillars that appear is the number of spiritual roots. The fewer the spiritual roots, the better. The disciple of the spirit testing stone said in a sad tone. After gaining such a treasure from the immortal sect, he is afraid that he will have to pay for it. They have suppressed various factions for thousands of years. You know, no one has ascended to this place for thousands of years. Who will be the first to attract attention? End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 444. Chapter 444. Destroy the Zhang family. Zhang Xishan's palms were trembling a little. He turned around and looked at the Zhang family in the audience. Zhang Mu and Mr. Zhang, second Master Zhang, were looking at him in the crowd. Everyone is looking forward to it. He knew that the whole family had not slept for 3 days. Ever since Wen Mingxian came back, the Zhang family can no longer sleep peacefully. He just hopes that his talent will be higher, and higher. Let Xianmen protect the Zhang family. Otherwise, the Zhang family is doomed. Today, Wen Mingxian has still returned to the path he was supposed to take. Zhang Xishan suddenly thought of Zhang Xiaoyu. As soon as she gets close, all the spiritual energy will flow towards her, a strange phenomenon. Is she really just an ordinary woman? She has been obsessed with Wen Mingxian all her life, and only has eyes for Wen Mingxian, but in the end, She was killed by Wen Mingxian to prove his enlightenment, an ordinary mortal woman who entered the path of ruthlessness. Zhang Xishan took a deep breath, raised his hand, and put it towards the spiritual stone in the center. In the past few days, the three sects have not received any good seeds. Lingyuan Gate received only a dozen or so. The best thing is just double spiritual roots. The moment he put his palm up, a surge of spiritual energy surged out, and two beams of light rose instantly. Only. The light beam seems to be constantly changing. One of the light beams is constantly illusory and trembling, and it actually has a faint fusion gesture. That's right, he has just refined the 9 turns golden pill, and now it has reached its strongest effect. Two beams of light flashed in front of everyone's eyes, two together forming one. Oh, it's a single spiritual root. Although it is not as good as the top-grade heavenly spiritual root that is rare to see in 1,000 years, the single spirited root can still compare. If it weren't for the top-grade heavenly spiritual root that was released this year, this single spirited root would be a little genius. Zhang Xishan breathed a sigh of relief, with a slight smile on his lips. The Zhang family behind them also clenched their fists instantly, with smiles on their brows. Would you like to come to Ling? Before the disciple of Lingyuan sect could finish his words, he heard a cold voice. Zhang Xishan stepped on the bones of 326 members of my Wen family and took the 9 transformations golden pill, but he only developed a single spiritual root. It seems that your talent is nothing more than this. Wen Mingxuan's voice was light. As soon as he finished speaking, he appeared on the Lingyuan sect's arena. Zhang Xishan took a step back suddenly, his face turned pale. I don't know what you are talking about. Zhang Xishan held on to his fear. Really? You didn't look like this when you took my Wen family elixir. The Zhang family framed the Wen family for that pill, causing the entire Wen family to die tragically. Do you think you are qualified to practice? Wen Mingxian sneered. Disciples of the Lingyuan sect looked at each other in confusion. The immortal cultivation sect attaches great importance to cause and effect. If it is entangled in cause and effect, no matter how great the talent is, it will be useless. With the final thunder tribulation, everyone will be smashed into ashes. Mr. Wen, are you telling the truth? Wen Mingxian nodded. Today, I will seek justice for the Wen family, spit out the golden elixir that belongs to the Wen family. He just raised his hand and Zhang Xishan was firmly locked. The elders of the Lingyuan sect stood up one after another. Since they came to test their spiritual roots, they were disciples of the Lingyuan section. Even if they made mistakes, they would be punished by themselves. Wen Mingxian said calmly, leave this evil obstacle to me, and I owe the Lingyuan sect a favor. The elders of the Lingyuan sect looked at each other. Their leaders had been practicing for thousands of years, and their lifespan was approaching, but they still had not been able to ascend. And Wen Mingxian is only 20 years old now, and he has achieved such profound cultivation after only half a year of practice. It only takes 100 years to ascend. Everyone knows how to choose between a powerful man who is about to mature and a disciple with a single spiritual root who has made a big mistake. It is a serious crime to cause the entire Wen family to be punished for a petty matter. It should be handed over to the owner of the suffering. The elder of Lingyuan sect said immediately and righteously. Zhang Xishan's eyes suddenly widened. No, I am a disciple of the Lingyuan sect. Several people from the Zhang family behind him were even more frightened. Young son of the Wen family, how dare you? Zhang Mu shouted in horror. Wen Mingxian raised his hand and landed directly on Zhang Xishan Tianling Gai. Zhang Xishan only had time to let out a shrill scream. As soon as his knees became weak, he knelt on the ground. Ah, the shrill scream almost pierced the eardrums. With one palm strike, Zhang Xishan's spiritual roots were directly shattered. It can never be repaired. He will be a useless person for the rest of his life. He did not kill Zhang Xishan. For people like Zhang Xishan, he had never seen these living beings in his eyes. It would be harder for him to live as a useless person than to die. He has always felt that he is a unique and chosen one. Wen Mingxian looked indifferent. He had never dealt with the Zhang family. He just wanted to smash the Zhang family into pieces with one palm when they were standing in the clouds. The feeling of falling from the clouds is even more painful. Zhang Mu and others are crazy, that is the hope of the Zhang family. They watched helplessly as Zhang Xishan fell limply to the ground, and Zhang Mu's eyes turned red. He is finished. His wife is gone, his daughter is gone, his wife and children are separated, and Zhang Xishan is deposed. Wen Mingxian, you are so cruel. That is the hope of the Zhang family. Zhang Mushan was so angry that he vomited blood. Wen Mingxian glanced at him, aren't you the cruelest? He slowly approached Zhang Mu. The Zhang family members were so frightened that they could not help but retreat. You can't kill me, I am your father-in-law. Yes, I am your father-in-law. I know you took Xiao Yuer away from Beijing, I am your father-in-law. You killed me, Xiao Yuer will not forgive you, I am her father. I am her father. Zhang Mu couldn't stop trembling. When Wen Mingxian heard Xiao Yuer, he paused for a moment. He felt a sharp pain in his heart. Hold his back slightly. Just like that, several members of the Zhang family ran away. Little master uncle, come back to the mountain with us. Don't pay attention to those people, someone will take care of them. Wen Mingxian was accepted as a disciple by the Supreme Elder, and he directly jumped up the ranks and became the little master uncle. If you get involved, you will be involved in the cause and effect. Please follow us back to the mountain to retreat, the Supreme Elder asked him, and he would not be able to leave the retreat after handling the worldly affairs. Now the emperor is fawning over him, and many aristocratic families are fawning over him. In order to make him happy, they will torture the Zhang family in every possible way. All of this, cause and effect, will not fall into your own hands. Wen Mingxuan's heart was numb with pain and he nodded slightly. Not knowing what to expect, he still looked in the previous direction. Nothing. Everything is his illusion. The little fish is dead. Died by his sword. The moment when Mingxian stepped into the magic circle and left, a mouthful of blood spurted out. Little fish. Little fish. His tongue was firmly pressed against his teeth, and he killed the little fish with his own hands. At this moment, Xiao Yuer was standing outside the door of Jiang's house, watching the Zhang family in chaos. Everyone in the Zhang family was cursing and blaming each other and shirking responsibility. You were the one who asked me to murder the Zhang family in the first place. My good son-in-law became an enemy. My son-in-law is half a son-in-law. My son-in-law, a genius, is just gone. It's all your fault. I blame you for favoring the second child. My wife and I are separated, and I have nothing. Zhang Mu regretted and smashed the wall. He was the one who regretted it the most. Wen Mingxian was supposed to be his son-in-law. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 445. Chapter 445, Heaven's Favor. Where is Xishan? The old lady asked. What are you dragging the waste back for? Zhang Mu cursed coldly. It's all your fault. If it weren't for your bad ideas, would I have harmed the Wen family? My good wife is gone, my daughter is gone, and my son-in-law who was a genius is gone. Zhang Mu was heartbroken. The old lady cursed with red eyes. You agreed to divorce your wife yourself, you drew up Xiao Yuer's genealogy, and you went to the Wen family to confiscate the property yourself. Wen Mingxian, you unconscionable thing, you actually nullified my inheritance. The Zhang family's hope for hundreds of years is all gone. Shan Lingen's genius. The old lady's hair turned gray overnight and she lost half her life from crying. Lao Er's family had already gone to find Zhang Xishan in tears, and the Zhang family was in disarray. One calculation, all in vain. Fetching water in a bamboo basket is in vain, everything is gone. The old lady was almost blind. The old man couldn't even get sick and was greatly stimulated. The most exciting thing for them is yet to come. Xiao Yuer went to the Su family first. When everyone in the Su family saw her coming back, they didn't ask about Wen Mingxian and just let her have a meal quietly. Can any of my little cousins have their spiritual roots tested? Xiao Yuer asked. Uncle shook his head. Our Su family has been tested before, even in so many generations, and we have never had one. Our family is not so lucky, the uncle smiled honestly. This is also the reason why Su was not tough enough at the beginning. The ancestors have never had spiritual roots, and their descendants are all mortals. Perhaps, this time it's different. Go and try it. Xiao Yuer touched their heads. There are 4 nieces and nephews in my uncle's family, 2 of whom have a touch of spiritual energy. Perhaps, it's because he comes from the same family as her? Having some good luck. At this moment, Xiao Yuer still doesn't understand that God's preference is the greatest luck. No, this is called luck. The luck favored by heaven. Directly changed the fate of the Su family. After dinner, I went to take a test. It's time to take a walk. The uncle winked, fearing that his niece would be unhappy when she saw Wen Mingxian, so he tried to make her happy. The whole family is happy. Are you going to see your mother? Asked the uncle. Xiao Yuer shook his head. Not yet, let's not disturb her for now. Xiao Yuer smiled lightly. Sister Xiao, I think you seem to be different. The 5-year-old nephew held her hand and said with a frown. Is it because my sister is prettier? My aunt joked. The little nephew pouted. The older sister was just the older sister, but now the older sister seems to be rising into the sky, or flying away on clouds. My sister's eyes were so calm. Xiao Yuer touched his head. He was a smart little guy. After dinner, the Su family accompanied several children to have a spirit test. When passing by Jiang's house, the house was in a mess, and a piece of Zhang Mu's scalp was torn off. This is just the beginning. The Zhang family's suffering begins today. That's good, I've received my retribution. My aunt felt sorry for her sister-in-law and Xiao Yuer, and she spat. Uncle pulled her sleeve, fearing that Xiao Yuer would mind. Xiao Yuer has never even glanced at it. At this time, there were fewer people testing spirits. Xiao Yuer gently pushed a few children. Go and try it. Which sect should I go to? Sanking section. Xiao Yuer pointed casually. 4 children stood behind the crowd. The disciples who knew how to detect spirits began to doze off. It had been a long time since there had been any children with spiritual abilities. Today is the last day, and it will end at midnight. Hey, this is the year when the least number of spiritual roots have been tested, right? Last year there were more than 120, and this year there are more than 40. I only need to go back. Afraid of getting scolded. The peerless day did not grab it, not even the disciples were enough. Several young disciples drooped their heads. At this moment, there were not many people watching around. It was late at night and everyone had gone back to rest. Seeing that there were only 4 little carrot heads left behind, they all waved their hands and dozed off and walked back. One of the little girls stepped on her feet and put her hand up. No movement. Another boy put his hand up, but still nothing happened. The young disciple could not hide his disappointment and sighed. The third fat man stepped on his feet and put his hand up. Shush Yeshua. 3 white lights rose up. 3 spiritual roots, although it's a little mottled and can only be considered a middle grade one, at least one of them is here. The little disciple curled up his lips. The more one he got, the less he would get scolded. The common people who were halfway there stopped in their tracks, ouch and ouch with envy. Today there is only one little girl left. The little girl is about 7 or 8 years old. She looks like a sister. She doesn't have stage fright when seeing so many people staring at her. Seriously put his little hand up. A golden and silver beam of light appeared instantly. Wow, double spiritual roots. They came together. They seemed to be wearing sister and brother clothes. They all had similar clothes. They are probably a family. I'm so envious of them. Everyone was jumping up and down, feeling envious and jealous. Sue family members were already frightened. Uncle pinched himself even more. Xiao Yuer, Uncle is not dreaming, is he? There are two spiritual root disciples in our family. As he said this, the elder started to cry. It would be better if our family left home earlier, and your mother wouldn't have to suffer so much. Didn't the Zhang family just look down on the Su family's lack of spiritual roots? The spirit-detecting disciple also showed a hint of joy on his brows. He has two spiritual roots, which is not bad. You can become an inner disciple. It is already a middle to upper level figure. Moreover, this spiritual root has excellent attributes and is a good seedling. Father, Mother, we can practice cultivation now. Can we go and bring my little ant back? My little ant will never be bullied again. The words spoken by the two children made people feel heartbroken. They are all good children, they are all good children. The Su family is going to shine. Sister, can you also take a test? Sister, you haven't taken the test even once. The two children took Xiao Yuer's hands and walked forward. At this moment, there are no people lining up outside, and the three sects have begun to pack their things. The chosen lucky ones have already said goodbye to their families, and are now standing together, waiting for the elders to send them back to their sect with fairy weapons. The people have reached the edge and are faintly submerged in darkness. Little brother, can you let my sister take a test? The two little guys pulled Sister Yuer and asked sweetly. The spirit-detecting disciple glanced at Xiao Yuer. She is already 16 or 17 years old. At such an age, it is generally difficult to detect spiritual roots. You have the most spiritual energy when you are young, and it is easiest to detect your spiritual roots. There are many 4 and 5 spiritual roots that were not detected when they were young. When they grow up, they disappear from everyone, and they only have more spiritual energy than ordinary people. Cultivation is even more impossible. However, we are about to finish the work, so it doesn't matter if you test it. Just have fun with it. Although the young disciple was worried about being scolded when he went back, he still spoke kindly. Sister, try it quickly. The two little guys' eyes were bright, full of anticipation and excitement. The hand holding the little fish was imprinted on the transparent stone. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 446. Chapter 446. Peerless Immortal Spirit Body. Yes, let's test it. The uncle also looked happy. But my uncle is mature and knows a little more. I'm afraid that Xiao has no spiritual roots and feels a sense of gap in his heart. Even if you don't have spiritual roots, it doesn't matter. Your two younger brothers and sisters will treat you as your biological sisters. If they treat you badly, I will expel them from the house. The uncle glanced at the two children. The two younger siblings immediately jumped up and said, "We don't know how. Sister Yuer is our biological sister. Whoever bullies Sister Yuer from now on will bully me." The little guys raised their fists to express their stance. Uncle is very satisfied. The Su family finally has spiritual roots. A big man with red eyes. Xiao Yuer curled her eyes. The children in her uncle's family always respected her. When she was still in the Zhang family, the Su family was afraid that she would be looked down upon, so they always gave her the best things in the house, to save face for her and her mother. Later they were expelled from the Zhang family, and the Su family took them back overnight, fearing that they would feel alienated, so the family always thought of ways to amuse them. Uncle's family are very good. Sister knows your thoughts. Xiao Yuer touched their heads. It happened that at this moment, the second wife of the Zhang family passed by with red eyes under the high platform. She went to ask a doctor to treat Jiang Xishan. These people in the capital are used to flattering the superior and disparaging the inferior. She invited several imperial doctors, but they all refused to come if they had something to do. Finally, I hired a private doctor. You really overestimate your capabilities. Does Zhang Xiao also have spiritual roots? Mrs. Zhang sneered. As he was leaving with the doctor, he heard a street vendor say, "My life is very good." That family member's surname seems to be Su, right? He just had 3 spiritual roots, and then 2 spiritual roots. 1 inner disciple, 1 outer disciple. Oops, the ancestors are really smoking. The vendor sighed with envy. Mrs. Zhang froze. What did you say? Her eyes widened suddenly. How is it possible? How is it possible for the Su family to have spiritual roots? Their ancestors never had it. The second lady's eyes were blood red with anger. Her family inheritance was abolished. Why did the Su family rise? She was so angry that she could only grit her teeth, but she was still busy asking the doctor to go back at this moment. He had no choice but to turn around angrily and rush towards Jiang's house with the doctor. At this moment, all the sects began to pack their things and prepare to leave. The people have already walked to the edge of the square, yawning and looking forward to the next 10 years. He was talking about the amazingly talented young master of the Wen family. The young disciple from the Sanking sect smiled and said, "It doesn't matter, let's give it a try." "It doesn't matter if you test it." The round-faced young disciple drooped his head, and he would be scolded anyway when he went back. "It is also good to hold an extra stick of incense." Hey, Sanking sect didn't recruit any good disciples this year. Last year I ascended to the immortal sect and got a heavenly spiritual root, and this year I got a top-grade heavenly spiritual root. It was really great luck. Hey, the most brilliant light I have ever seen in my life is the light pillar of the top-grade Tianligan. The young disciple smashed his mouth with regret. Seeing several children watching, the disciple explained, "The more mottled the ordinary spiritual roots, the more colors they have. Because they are divided into several parts. Look, the light of your 3 spiritual roots will be weaker. The light from the twin spiritual roots is more intense. A single spiritual root, a heavenly spiritual root, or a top-quality heavenly spiritual root is a pillar of light. As the talent becomes stronger, the light becomes stronger. Ouch, the light pillar of Wen Mingxuan's top-quality spiritual root is the most dazzling thing I have ever seen. Hey, it would be great if it was from the Sanking sect. Sanking sect will definitely be able to support him." Xiao Yuer squinted her eyes and smiled softly. She lowered her head and looked at her palm. What kind of spiritual root was it? She could feel the favor and joy of the aura of heaven and earth towards her. Even if she does nothing, heaven and earth love her. The 2 little guys grabbed their sister's hands and pressed them towards the spirit testing stone. The spirit detecting stone was completely transparent, and there was a warm feeling in the hand. Suddenly, Xiao Yuer narrowed his eyes slightly. I saw the transparent spiritual stone trembling suddenly. What's going on? Is it broken? The young disciple blinked his eyes and his face became even more bitter. He failed to recruit a good disciple, and even the spiritual stone was broken. You have to be scolded again when you go back. I haven't had time to speak yet. Then the transparent spiritual stone suddenly burst out with a powerful and dazzling light. The eyes of those who were pierced by the light turned white and could not see anything clearly. You can only see that ray of light connecting the sky and the earth, rushing straight into the sky. Tear the night in half and make the whole sky as bright as day. The girl in front of the spiritual stone looked calm. See. Small cracks spread on the spirit detecting stone, and then there was a bang in front of everyone's eyes. The entire spirit detecting stone exploded directly. Turn into little stars scattered between the sky and the earth. The young disciple's lips were trembling, his whole body was trembling, and he was shaking unbelievably. Ju, peerless fairy root. He stammered and couldn't utter a word. Peerless immortal spiritual root, the legendary non-grade spiritual root. Even if she does nothing, spiritual energy will flow into her crazily when she sleeps and breathes. A natural immortal body. The best Tianligan is like a little brother in front of her. The elders of the various sects who had not yet left were all stunned and looked at Xiao Yuer. A fiery light flashed in his eyes. Deng Xianmanouch slapped his thigh. No matter what, all the elders escorted Wen Mingxian back to the sect for retreat. The young disciple of the Sanking sect trembled and immediately crushed the jade beads around his waist. He had 7 jade beads around his waist, and he smashed them into pieces. He is the youngest son of the head of the sect, and because of his mediocre nature, he wanders around the sect. The head father was afraid that he would cause trouble outside, so he gave him a string of jade beads to protect his life. It is the treasure of Sanking sect. Crushing one into pieces can withstand 3 powerful palms, enough to hold on until the master comes to rescue. 7 stones represent the danger of annihilation of the section. You can inform all elders and uncles who are in retreat. His father said that this thing has not been used for thousands of years. At this moment, he pinched it all. If he misses this peerless fairy root, he will have no energy left in the Sanking sect. It is reported that only one peerless fairy root has appeared in this world. Born with a fairy body. He is also the legendary creator and creation god. Now, the peerless fairy root is right in front of you. At this moment, as the people were about to enter, they felt a dazzling light penetrating the entire world. Suddenly, a violent voice burst out from the side of the spirit measuring platform. It's the peerless fairy root, the peerless fairy root. The elders, who had always been steady, were like crazy lunatics. Notify the leaders of each faction one after another. The Zhang family walked out of the house tiredly. What's the noise outside? Why is it so bright? It's too dazzling. Old Mrs. Zhang raised her hands to cover her eyes. She felt heartbroken when she remembered what the doctor said that Zhang Xishan would be in this life. Zhang Mu's face was unshaven and his eyes were bloodshot. Trash, become trash. Our Zhang family has no hope, Zhang Mu murmured. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 447. Chapter 447. Waste turns into genius. Give me back my wife, give me back my daughter. I abandoned my wife and daughter for such a waste, and now I have nothing, Zhang Mu cursed with red eyes. The old lady immediately scolded her head and face. What kind of good things are your wife and daughter? They are not a bunch of trash. When I asked you to marry the descendant of a monk, you were deceived by Mrs. Su and insisted on marrying her. You gave birth to a loser like Zhang Xiao. Mrs. Zhang pursed her lips and did not say that the Su family had detected 2 children with spiritual roots. The Zhang family was very upset. Mr. Zhang looks old in a day. While they were making a noise, the Zhang family's concierge suddenly rushed in. Old lady, old man, there are many dignitaries outside the door, coming to our house to congratulate you. By the way, someone also sent a miraculous doctor who practiced medicine and said he wanted to treat Mr. Xishan. Mrs. Jiang's face was filled with joy. What's going on? What are you congratulating me on? The porter was a little confused. I don't even know, but there are so many noble people coming. Now they all come to the door in person. Change immediately. Mr. Zhang straightened his back immediately. Zhang Mu immediately changed clothes and went out. When he saw the packed carriages outside the door, Zhang Mu looked happy. These were noble people that even the Zhang family could not reach. Every household has a spiritual root and has an extraordinary status in the sect of cultivating immortals. I don't even have the qualifications to talk to them. At this moment, their head of the house actually came in person. Zhang Mu was confused in his heart, but his face remained calm as he welcomed the person through the door. Brother Zhang, congratulations, Brother Zhang is indeed a blessing. Brother Zhang is indeed very lucky. When you get rich, Don't forget us brothers. Those high-ranking people were extremely humble when they saw him and were full of flattery. The Zhang family's eyes widened in shock. The old lady was even more complimented by everyone. Master Zhang, is your love in the house? It's really disturbing to come here to visit. The man who spoke was full of the aura of a powerful person, and there were two old men standing behind him. Master. At this moment, he was extremely kind and promoted the Zhang family to the top. Zhang Mu took a sip of tea and waved his hand. Don't bother me, don't bother me. Do you mean Zhang Xiao? Zhang Mu frowned. What trouble did she get into outside? That scoundrel always loves to cause trouble, and also makes Mr. Wen dislike him. Alas, the Zhang family has given birth to her, which is a disaster. Xishan has been implicated because of this old Mrs. Zhang side. She naturally refused to admit that the Zhang family stole the Wen family's golden elixir and blamed everything on Xiao Yuer. Unexpectedly, as soon as these words came out, the whole place fell silent. The nobles who originally complimented them with a smile looked at them in astonishment. Don't worry, everyone, Xiao Yuer was expelled from the Zhang family a year ago. Whether she lives or dies has nothing to do with the Zhang family. The old lady was about to find out why they came to the Zhang family to congratulate her. I saw everyone standing up in unison. You actually kicked her out of the Zhang family. The big man's face was full of shock, and his voice was hoarse. That is the fairy root that will cause everyone in the world to fight for it. A peerless genius who was born to be held in the palm of everyone's hands. It's over, I'm going to offend the fairy root. You kicked her out of the house, why are we here to congratulate her? Isn't it just bringing bad luck to her? Everyone screamed and hurriedly ran out the door. The thing almost killed us. He originally wanted to embrace the future power, but ended up offending others. Everyone's face turned dark. What fairy root? What peerless genius? Who are you talking about? The old lady's voice trembled. She tried to stand up several times, but could not stand firm. Zhang Mu's face turned pale. The concierge called out. Just now when you went to see Master Xishan, the spirit stone detected a peerless genius. At this time, the heads of various families came to the disciples all night long. That burst of white light just now, the white light that illuminated the night sky, is the light emitted by the spiritual stone. Even young Master Wen's talent is not even half as good as hers. The concierge paused. It seems. The concierge stammered. It seems to be the eldest lady of our family. Oh no, the eldest lady who was kicked out of the house. The concierge spoke for a while before finishing slowly. The old lady screamed and fainted. None of her great sons and grandsons picked her up. The old man's eyes turned red with irritation. Are you telling the truth? Is it Xiao Yuer? That peerless genius is my granddaughter Xiao Yuer. Oh my God, the ancestors' prophecy refers to Xiao Yuer. The old man felt weak all over. It wasn't Zhang Xishan. Zhang Mu laughed crazily. She is my daughter, my little Yuer. She is indeed my daughter. It's so good, so good. It's so good for me, so good for Jiang's parents. Zhang Mu was happy, almost going crazy. When Mrs. Zhang woke up quietly, she heard her son's laughter. But, that girl has been removed from the family tree. The old lady's words made everyone in the Zhang family fall silent for an instant. Zhang Mu staggered even more, with a pale face. It's all your fault, it's all your fault, I lost my daughter, it's all your fault that my daughter was expelled. Zhang Mu pointed at the old lady and cursed endlessly. My wife and children are happy, and my life is harmonious and beautiful. It's all your fault for harming me. My fish, my fish. Zhang Mu stumbled and rolled out. Old Mrs. Jiang's breathing became heavy. He glanced at the old woman on the ground. You were born as the grandmother of the family, and the bowl of water was uneven, which made Xiao Yuer and her daughter suffer a lot. You clean up, carry the thorn sticks on your back, and go to the Su family to ask for forgiveness. The old man looked a little solemn. If Xiao Yuer forgives you and is willing to go back to the Zhang family, then come back together. If she doesn't want to go back to the Zhang family, you don't have to come back, the old man sent the old lady to with just one sentence. Zhang Heng, you clearly approved all this, so why should you blame me? The old lady yelled angrily. Those are the descendants of my Zhang family. They are the hopes that our Zhang family has been waiting for hundreds of years. They are all ruined. The old man's heart was bleeding. It was obviously his granddaughter. It's from the Zhang family, it's from the Zhang family. Thinking of those proud men who had their eyes set high above their heads, they humbly came to the Zhang family to compliment Zhenluo. What a pity, what a pity. The Zhang family did not believe in evil, so they did not even close the door and ran directly towards the spirit measuring platform. Nearly the whole city was mobilized, and there were people everywhere inside and outside. The heads and elders of each sect's Xianfeng Taoist masters were quarreling with each other without any manners in order to disciples. It is a pity to miss a top-quality heavenly spiritual route. If you miss the peerless immortal spirit route, all the dead ancestors will have to fake their corpses. The existence of the sect is meaningless. I will only think of that year when I missed the fairy route. The Zhang family raised their heads. The down-and-out girl who was kicked out by them. At this moment, his eyebrows are indifferent, standing on the top of all living beings, overlooking their insignificance. The Zhang family is mentally shattered. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 448. Chapter 448. The way of heaven is the way of heaven after all. Xiao Yuer, I want to see Xiao Yuer, that's my granddaughter. I am her grandfather. I am her grandmother. There was a loud commotion outside. The elders of the Sanking sect and the head of the Sanking sect accompanied her warmly. Xiao Yuer is right to choose our Sanking section. The head of the Sanking sect smiled happily and patted his incompetent son on the shoulder. His son is a fool, he is naive and honest. Xiao Yuer narrowed his eyes, maybe. He is a talented person. The boss clapped his hands and said, if you like him, just keep him by your side to run errands for you. The young disciple didn't feel aggrieved. Instead, he smiled and said, my junior uncle must be a little unfamiliar with her. From the mortal world to the world of cultivating immortals, it just so happens that I am here to take care of her. It's great now. After I got Wen Mingxian from the immortal sect, I raised my tail to the sky. We have a little uncle. The little disciple nodded happily. Xiao Yuer's eyes flashed slightly, and he was Wen Mingxian. Hearing the noise outside, the leader asked, what's the noise outside? The little Tong'er whispered, a group of mortals came outside, claiming to be my uncle's close relatives. The disciples don't know whether they are true or not, so they don't dare to let them in, nor do they dare to stop them. The crowd gathered around Xiao Yuer and walked out. Xiao Yuer's bones alarmed the supreme elder of the Sanking sect, who was in retreat. He was directly accepted as a close disciple. Sit on an equal footing with the headmaster, and the headmaster calls her junior sister. The disciples below all call her junior master uncle. Everyone gathered around the little uncle to come out. The Zhang family were stunned when they saw everyone's humility in front of Xiao Yuer. Yuer, I'm grandma, do you remember? Mrs. Jiang's hair almost fell apart after being pushed, and her face was full of fawning. Yuer, I'm daddy, and I gave you your name. I won't let these idiots let go of daddy, and they are rude to daddy. Zhang Mu glared at the surrounding disciples. If it were before, he would have been among these disciples, but he was humbled in front of him. It's different now. Even the head of the Sanking sect treated his daughter with respect. As the Zhang family became prosperous, so did he. Zhang Mu was ecstatic. Yuer, it turns out that the prophecy of our Zhang family has come true for you. Oh, luckily you are making a difference. I almost missed you. We have kicked Zhang Shishan out of the house. He took your position and caused us to misunderstand. Yuer. Zhang Mu sighed and wiped his tears. It's okay now, our father and daughter have reconciled, and we are still a family after all. Jongmu wanted to take a step forward. Swish. A sharp transparent lightsaber was inserted straight into Jongmu's forefoot. Ah, Jongmu only took one step, and half of his foot was cut off. The Zhang family trembled in fright and all stepped back. Xiao Yu'er looked cold, without any warmth in his eyes. Father? What kind of father do you think you are? The girl's voice was clear and cold with a hint of coolness. She looked down at all living beings and seemed to feel compassion for them. The family tree has been eliminated, and all ties have been severed. Xiao Yu'er glanced at the Zhang family. The Zhang family was heartbroken and said hurriedly, "You can add them back, Xiao Yu'er. Your father is confused. We can add them back. We are a family with broken bones and connected tendons. If you abandon your family and ignore your blood relatives, will your practice be successful? I heard that you practitioners are the most particular about cause and effect. Aren't you afraid of five thunders, Mr. Zhang? It seems like some work has been done." Sure enough, those words made everyone in the Sanking sect change their expressions. There is a thunder calamity before ascension, and there is also a calamity of asking one's mind. If one fails to ask one's mind, inner demons will breed, and 9 thunders will strike. Xiao Yu'er pursed her lips, but her smile was a little cold. Yet, the Zhang family's kindness to me is nothing more than giving birth to me and raising me. My mother takes half, Zhongmu, and you take the other half. When I was 3 years old, you exchanged the 3-year-old me for the Wen family's elixir. Did you press a fingerprint one day? Xiao Yu'er said calmly. He took out a piece of paper from his pocket. The piece of paper was a few years old, and it actually said that kindness should be compensated with elixirs. From now on, he would never owe kindness again. Underneath, there is Zhongmu's fingerprint. Zhongmu's face turned pale. That was his handprint, but he had never read a single word on it at that time. In the 15th year, you relied on my identity to find out about the Wen family's 9-turn golden pill. Later, you used this to seize the 9-turn golden pill and removed me. I will repay all kindness you give me. The way of heaven is clear, and retribution is not good. The Zhang family obtained the most valuable treasure, but gave it up themselves. This is your retribution. I have a clear conscience. Xiao Yu'er's back was straight, without any fear. The old lady of the Zhang family shouted. He raised his hand tremblingly and pointed at Xiao Yu'er. You have been repaying the kindness of the Zhang family a long time ago, just to break up with the Zhang family. Nothing more to owe. Xiao Yu'er was non-committal. A sound of poof. Old Mrs. Zhang was so angry that she spit out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground, not knowing whether she was alive or dead. Zhongmu was so shocked that he couldn't even move his eyes. You hang around Wen Mingxian all day long, agreeing to any of Wen Mingxuan's requests, and would rather become a joke in the capital than follow him. In the end, you even went with him. Just, to repay the kindness of the Wen family. Zhongmu was almost stupid. She has been repaying the kindness of the Wen family for more than 10 years. Xiao Yu'er raised his eyebrows and didn't say anything, just looked at him quietly. Everyone is laughing at the Zhang family for giving birth to an infatuated child. Everyone is laughing at Xiao Yu'er for being a dog licker and laughing at her for only seeing Wen Mingxian in her eyes. But I don't know. She was returning the favor from the beginning to the end. Zhang Mushan shivered and suddenly felt that he had never seen his daughter clearly. The daughter he looked down on turned out to have had a calm and decisive heart when she was young. The headmaster was so happy that he almost touched his hands and laughed. He had found a treasure. I found a treasure. He was originally worried that her state of mind would not be able to keep up with the speed of practice, but he didn't want to. People understand this at the age of 3. On the contrary, it was only when he got older that he saw through this truth. Of course, he has seen through it, and he can't do it either. I don't owe any cause and effect. It's terrible. Such a perseverance of mind is actually more rare than talent. You are the most unfeeling person, ha ha ha, you are the most unfeeling person. Zhang Mu pointed at Xiao Yu'er while crying. He looked slightly crazy. She is only 16 years old, yet she does not owe anything to her. Since the age of 3, she has been paying back every cause and effect around her. Everyone is a stepping stone on her path of spiritual practice. Zhang Mu's heart shivered. No wonder such a person has been remembered by his ancestors for hundreds of years. No wonder his ancestors kept asking him to treat him well. Such a person will shock the whole world sooner or later. Such a person comes from the Zhang family. She comes from the Zhang family, is his bloodline, and is his biological daughter. Today. All gone. It's all gone. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Sheng. Chapter 449. Chapter 449. Wen Mingxuan's first wife. Old Mrs. Zhang is paralyzed. Shortness of breath attacks the heart, leading to direct stroke and paralysis. Zhang Mu went crazy, crying and laughing crazily on the streets, and said to everyone he saw, "My daughter is a genius. My daughter is a genius." Mr. Zhang had no face to face the ancestors of the Zhang family and directly became a monk. The entire Zhang family collapsed in one fell swoop. When Mrs. learned about this, she laughed and cried at the same time. Xiao Yu'er invited her to go to the Sanking sect for retirement, but Mrs. pursed her lips and refused. "This place allows me to calm down, and my mother will stay here and not go anywhere. Whenever she misses her, she will come back to see me." Mrs. looked at all the tablets of the Wen family in the Buddhist hall, and her little fish eyes trembling. She never told her mother that when Wen Mingxian stabbed her to death, she had repaid the debt. But what Su returned was her peace of mind. They, mother and daughter, were all implicated by the Zhang family. "Okay, Mom, if you miss the fish, blow this little conch. The fish will appear." Xiao Yu'er took out a small jade-like conch from her waist. This is a magic weapon that can protect her safety. You can also contact yourself. Mrs. touched the fish's brows and said, "Mom is so happy, my fish can be himself. Go and pursue your future." She had a fast meal with Mrs. Before leaving, Mrs. moved her lips but did not say anything. She probably wanted to ask Wen Mingxian. Xiao Yu'er also pretended not to know and left the Wen family. The Su family held a grand ceremony for Xiao Yu'er, and it happened that his 2 younger brothers and sisters also entered the Sanking section. The 3 of them took care of each other, and the Su family could feel at ease. The Su family suddenly became the most popular family in Beijing. The Zhang family mistakenly took fish eyes for pearls, and this spread throughout the world. Sheng forced the second wife of the Zhang family to move and hide, and lived like a shameful person. As soon as Xiao Yu'er entered the Sanking sect, he practiced with his uncle Tais Hang. But what is surprising is that she is not suitable for all the exercises of the Sanking section. She seems to have her own exercises. "What's the name of this technique of yours? It suits you so well, it's like it's tailor-made for you." The Supreme Elder was a little curious. Xiao Yu'er slightly bent his eyes. Yu'er doesn't know it either, but this technique seems to be engraved in his mind, as if he was born to practice this way. Eating, sleeping, and breathing, the exercises will flow by themselves to help her practice. The Supreme Elder touched his beard. "Do you have a name?" Xiao Yu'er said, "I call it to cultivate the way of heaven." She also recited some of the exercises. The elder Tais Hang unconsciously began to circulate his spiritual energy along with the mantra. He wanted to try this technique. With only 3 sentences, he shuddered. "A sharp pain struck me, and my meridians flowed backwards, almost ruining 1,000 years of practice. At this moment, he inexplicably felt the aura of laws coming from heaven. Even if there was only a hint of it, his face turned pale. The power of law. She is studying. The power of law. That technique is not suitable for him. No, it is not suitable for everyone. Not even gods can control the power of law. Only. The Supreme Elder shivered. The disciple he had accepted seemed to be a bit remarkable. It seems like he can't teach the other person anything. But the Supreme Elder said nothing and gave her a good environment. If she can protect the Sanking sect in the future, it will be the blessing of the Sanking sect. This is also the first time for everyone to see her terrifying cultivation talent. Wow, I heard that Wen Mingxian, who ascended the immortal sect, only took 3 days to become a Taoist. After half a year of hard work, we have reached the late stage of Qi training. We are about to build the foundation. Our disciples with ordinary talents cannot build a foundation in 10 years. The disciples talked about it with envy on their faces. I heard that he still has a wife who is deeply in love with him in the mortal world. Her wife and he were childhood sweethearts and have known each other for more than 10 years. He killed his wife and became a Taoist. He is really cruel. Then his wife is so unlucky, isn't she? Became a stepping stone for him to achieve enlightenment. The disciples were shocked. By the way, how is our junior uncle's practice going? Has he been here for half a year? The big guy asked. Suddenly, everyone was silent for a moment. Uncle Master, is that the speed that humans should have? Every time she practices, the spiritual energy of the entire mountain runs towards her. Later, the headmaster directly assigned the entire mountain to her. After all, no one who lives on her hilltop can get a breath of spiritual energy. They all look like traitors, and their spiritual energy is still very resistant. The most terrifying thing is her understanding. The disciple who spoke covered his face. It is rare for us to encounter an epiphany, and many people cannot achieve it in their lives. However, my uncle, just having a meal in the dining hall can lead to 3 days of enlightenment. Just sitting by the pond and watching the fish playing in the water, you can have an epiphany. It's as common as having an epiphany every 3 days. It is said that the Supreme Elders even cried with envy. Half a year ago, the Supreme Elder could still guide her. Now, the Supreme Elder has nothing to teach. It is reported that all the elders of the Sanking sect have been her masters. However, they were drained by her in a few days. Nothing comes out. The Supreme Elder said that she is like a sponge, absorbing all knowledge wholeheartedly. There is not a single distracting thought in her mind, not a single thing. Nothing can hinder her practice. Everyone sighed. They couldn't even envy this kind of people. Tell me, who is more powerful, she or Wen Mingxian? Does this need to be said? Junior uncle and Wen Mingxian are not at the same level at all. There will be a sect competition meeting soon. We only met in 2 days. Everyone looked excited. The confrontation between geniuses was rare in 1,000 years. All of this has nothing to do with Xiao Yu. She could clearly feel that the more she practiced, the more favored she became between heaven and earth. Like, she was supposed to dominate this world. She can feel the whisper of the wind, the joy of the rain, and the mood of all things. Wen Mingxian, to her, is now just one of all things. Xiao Yu frowned slightly and pinched a peach blossom by the window. Uncle Master, next month the various sects will compete. Do you want to go and see it? Uncle Master said that you are practicing too fast, so why not stop occasionally and take a look at the scenery along the way? The spirit detecting disciple's name is King Zhu, and every day just stay with her and take care of her daily life. I heard that talented disciples from all sects will come. There is also the treasure of the immortal section. It is said that the retreat begins as soon as you enter the gate. You just left the retreat yesterday and will come tomorrow. It was rumored that Brother Mingxian was so beautiful that the little girl chased him for more than 10 years in the mortal world. He was deeply in love with him and even married him in the mortal world. As a result, on the wedding night, Wen Mingxian killed his wife and became a Taoist. Disciple also wants to see, what kind of person can be so cruel, King Zhu said with a smile. Xiao Yu'er chuckled. Heaven's proud man has a stronger mind than others. King Zhu shook his head. Yes, what a cruel heart, Xiao Yu'er murmured in a low voice. I want to ask too. End of this chapter. My koi sister is 3.5 years old. Author, Xia Shengsheng. Chapter 450. Chapter 450 Husband and Wife Meet. There was a competition between the sects, and each sect sent out its proud disciples. But the one with the loudest voice is Wen Mingxian. Wen Mingxian killed his wife to prove his righteousness. This path to righteousness made many people curious. But because of his extraordinary talent and outstanding appearance, he has attracted admiration from many women in the world of cultivation. Mortals have a limited lifespan and are ignorant and chaotic. How can they be worthy of senior brother Mingxian? She has been obsessed with senior brother Mingxian for more than 10 years just because she has been engaged to him since childhood. Fortunately, senior brother got rid of her and started practicing Taoism. Several women from the cultivation world raised their lips with a bit of disdain. Death is just the end of the matter. Only the ruthless way of senior brother will go further. Oh, senior brother Wen is so soft-hearted. He also set up a memorial tablet for his wife, and it is said that it is placed in his dormitory. A man as brilliant as senior brother Mingxian has a mortal woman as his wife. No one knows that Wen Mingxian is here, who is the first wife in the mortal world. Even Wen Mingxian himself didn't know that Xiao Yu'er had entered the Sanking sect. By the way, will Fairy Lingmiao from Sanking sect be here today? After Xiao Yu'er entered Sanking sect, the Supreme Elder gave him the nickname Lingmiao. Everyone only knows about Fairy Lingmiao but not about Zhang Xiaowu. I really want to take a look at Fairy Lingmiao. It is said that she also comes from the mortal world, Menglai country. Oh, it sounds like she is from the same country as senior brother Mingxian. I wonder if they have heard each other's name. Many disciples stood on the high platform. There was a lot of discussion. A country is so big, how could they know each other when they were both mortals? Everyone couldn't help but laugh. The young man in white who headed the immortal sect had an indifferent look on his face, as clear and sharp as a banished immortal. His eyes were slightly narrowed and he did not speak. The disciple behind him was full of anger. Junior brother, don't worry too much, these people just love to spread gossip. Junior brother majors in the ruthless path, what do they know? For junior brother, love is just a drag. The senior brother heard the gossip from the outside world and was a little worried. This proud man of heaven is the only hope of ascending to the immortal sect. In half a year, the results of the next 10 years were accomplished. Wen Mingxian pursed his lips tightly and said nothing. He raised his hand and gently pinched the jade pendant around his waist. Junior brother, your piece of jade is broken. When you return to the sect, senior brother will find you a good piece. The senior brother couldn't help but speak when he saw that he often rubbed the jade around his waist. Wen Mingxian has a Pisces jade pendant around his waist, but it is covered with fine lines and has long been broken. Most likely I like this piece of jade. It was glued on carefully later. No need. It's just a vulgar thing. Wen Mingxuan's voice was cold and he let go of the jade pendant. This piece of jade was a token exchanged between fingers for marriage. This piece of jade was worn by Xiao Yu'er for 15 years. Later, he threw it into the water. Xiao Yu'er jumped down and picked up the piece of jade again. It was damaged for no apparent reason. When she got married, she returned the jade to herself. Junior brother, you are practicing too hard. Master specially asked you to take you out for a walk. Don't be too harsh. Senior brother sighed, and this junior brother was chilled to his bones. I don't know how that woman in the mortal world managed to cover him up. Today there is a grand competition among various sects. As soon as he appears on the stage, he will knock the opponent off the pedestal without even using 3 moves. No trace of mercy was spared. Wouldn't it be better to go back to practice earlier to save time and effort? Wen Mingxian whispered. Senior brother sighed and said no more. Disciples from several sects each drew lots. Each lot has 2 disciples. The disciples with the same number will go to the stage to compete. Wen Mingxian has won 7 games in a row. Facing him, no one has made 3 moves. Senior brother Mingxian is really suitable for the ruthless path. In just half a year, his cultivation is comparable to that of the golden pill. Everyone was amazed. Others who have been cultivating for hundreds of years will probably find it difficult to achieve. I am afraid that the Dengxian sect will take the first place this year. Who will let them pick up a big killer weapon? The disciples around him did not dare to compete with him, and some disciples even abstained from voting. This allowed Wen Mingxian to directly win 9 consecutive victories, causing women from all sects to scream. Senior brother Mingxian looks so good, look at me, look at me. The female disciples were going crazy. Brother Mingxian, brother Mingxian. Some disciples even directly evoked brother Mingxian. Wen Mingxuan's expression suddenly moved, and he looked straight at the woman who called Mingxian brother. The woman was stunned. Then his face turned red with embarrassment. Did senior brother Mingxian notice me? Brother Mingxian, I. She tidied her hair shyly and was about to speak. Ah, a stern sword light came and landed directly between her throat. It was only a hair away from piercing her throat. The woman screamed, took a step back suddenly, and fell to the ground. Don't call me brother. Wen Mingxuan's eyes were cold, almost filled with murderous intent. Everyone is still. Looking at the proud man on the high platform who was looked up to, I felt a little dazed. Everyone vaguely realized that the phrase brother Mingxian seemed to be some kind of taboo for him. Extremely sensitive and cannot be touched. Brother Mingxian. Brother Mingxian, brother Mingxian. The girl's charming voice seemed to pass through layers of barriers and surround him. Sometimes he remembered the angry girl with her hands on her hips, angrily scolding Wen Mingxian. Wen Mingxian took a deep breath and drove out the little fish in his mind. Wen Mingxian held the silver sword and stood in the center of the high platform with his eyes slightly closed. Even so, there were still a large number of disciples surrounding Wen Mingxuan's arena. Wen Mingxian has been in Taoism for half a year, and he is able to challenge the disciples of the Golden Core stage. He is indeed the hope of the world of cultivation. You don't know about the wonderful fairy yet, do you? The clever fairy of the Sanking sect is probably on par with Wen Mingxian. Both of them have never been defeated. These 2 people will face each other sooner or later. When 2 geniuses collide, I don't know who will win. No 47. No 72. The elder summoned several disciples in succession, and some of them could not withstand Wen Mingxuan's pressure and simply gave in. The rest of them were all knocked off the ring within 3 moves. This made everyone in an uproar. Wen Mingxuan's voice became louder and louder. Till the end. Only the last 2 people are left. The boy in white and the girl in blue stood in front of their respective arenas, slowly looking at each other. The girl in the blue dress had her face covered with white gauze, her figure was like a sharp blade, and her eyes were stained with frost as she looked straight at Wen Mingxian. Wen Mingxian fell into those eyes, his expression slightly dazed. He seemed a little familiar. A pair of eyes that kept appearing in his midnight dreams. The next one is number 12. Number 12 is the number of the clever fairy of the Sanking sect. Because of the large number of people watching, the elders combined the 2 arenas into one. Xiao Yuer's clothes were fluttering, and he pointed a long sword directly at Wen Mingxian, full of killing intent. Everyone always feels that. There was something wrong with the atmosphere around these 2 people. Obviously we stand together and are in perfect agreement, but unexpectedly. There is a strong sense of dissonance. End of this chapter.